Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden might be a story that you're too advanced in your Christian theology to study any longer. Well then, don't let me trouble you to watch this video any longer and learn how the search for a COVID-19 vaccine and the cover-up of the Chinese government are in fact commentaries on this story that you have grown beyond. If you have been watching my videos, you know that Adam and Eve, though created by God, did not know that God was good. We all know God is good because we all know good and evil now. Now that our ancestors ate the forbidden fruit in the Garden of Eden, if you have been watching my videos, you also know that Adam and Eve did not know that Satan was evil. If you and I were friends and we did not know good and evil, and I said to you on Valentine's Day, hey, Satan is at the door, he brought you some flowers and chocolate. I think he wants to take you to a movie. You would have no possible way of knowing that it is a bad thing to go out with him. Even if God told you, do not go out with Satan on Valentine's Day, because you don't know God is good. You are essentially in a lack of knowledge. Adam and Eve, like Hosea makes very clear, were destroyed for a lack of knowledge, or like Isaiah makes clear, went into captivity to death because of a lack of knowledge. Satan used their lack of knowledge to destroy them. Hasn't anyone done that to you? Haven't you done that to someone too? First, let's talk about hope, the hope of a vaccine, and what it has to do with this story, and then how the Chinese cover-up also relates. A vaccine works by training the immune system to recognize and combat pathogens, either viruses or bacteria. To do this, certain molecules from the pathogen must be introduced into the body to trigger an immune response. These molecules are called antigens, and they are present on all viruses and bacteria. By injecting these antigens into the body, the immune system can safely learn to recognize them as hostile invaders, produce antibodies, and remember them in the future. Said another way, a vaccine for COVID-19 will take your immune system out of a lack of knowledge, so that when the virus attacks your immune system already knows what it needs to do in order to destroy the virus. When the story of Adam and Eve is understood properly, it is easy to see the fingerprints of God on almost everything. It has been well established in the Western media that China has been trying to cover up COVID-19 right from the beginning of its inception. And I have heard it said that 95% of the economic damage done to the world economy could have been avoided if China had just told us all the truth. I'll be following a story done on this by the National Review called The Comprehensive Timeline of China's COVID-19 Lies by Jim Girardi. Some point in late 2019, the coronavirus jumps from some animal species to a human being. The best guess at this point is that it happened at a Chinese wet market. December 6, according to a study done by The Lancet, the symptom onset date of the first patient identified was December 1st, 2019. 5 days after the illness onset, his wife, a 53-year-old woman who had no known history of exposure to the market, also presented with pneumonia and was hospitalized in the isolation ward. In other words, as early as the second week of December, Wuhan doctors were finding cases that indicated the virus was spreading from one human to another. December 21st, Wuhan doctors began to notice a cluster of pneumonia cases with an unknown cause. December 25th, Chinese medical staff in 2 hospitals in Wuhan are suspected of contracting viral pneumonia and are quarantined. This is additional strong evidence of human-to-human transmission. Sometime in late December, Wuhan hospitals notice an exponential increase in the number of cases that cannot be linked back to the Hunan seafood market. According to the New England Journal of Medicine, December 30, Dr. Li sent a message to a group of other doctors warning them about a possible outbreak of an illness that resembled severe acute respiratory syndrome or SARS, urging them to take protective measures against the infection. December 31st, Wuhan Municipal Health Commission declares the investigation so far has not found any obvious human-to-human transmission and no medical staff infection. This is the opposite of the belief of the doctors working on patients in Wuhan, and 2 doctors are already suspected of contracting the virus. 3 weeks after doctors first started noticing the cases, China contacts the World Health Organization. Imagine the difference if China had just opened up to us all right away. January 1, the Wuhan Public Security Bureau issues a summons to Dr. Li, accusing him of spreading rumors. 2 days later, at a police station, Dr. Li signed a statement acknowledging his misendeavor and promised not to commit further unlawful acts. 7 other people are arrested on similar charges and their fate is unknown. A study also on this date, according to the New York Times, a study of cell phone data from China, 175,000 people leave Wuhan that day. According to global travel data research firm OAG, 21 countries have direct flights to Wuhan in the first quarter of 2019. For comparison, 13,267 air passengers traveled from Wuhan, China to destinations in the United States, or about 4,422 per month. The U.S. government would not bar foreign nationals who had traveled to China from entering the country for another month. Wow. I guess this is where we stop and ask, was this deliberate? Did China realize the economic damage that was going to result to its economy? And as a result of that, decide that it wanted to share that with the rest of the world. January 2. One study of patients in Wuhan can only connect 27 of 41 infected patients to exposure at the Hunan seafood market, indicating human-to-human transmission away from the market. January 3. The Chinese government continued efforts to suppress all information about the virus. China's National Health Commission, the nation's top health authority, ordered institutions not to publish any information related to the unknown disease, and ordered labs to transfer any samples they had to designated testing institutions or to destroy them. Also, on this day, the Wuhan Municipal Health Commission released another statement repeating, "As of now, preliminary investigations have shown no clear evidence of human-to-human transmission and no medical staff infections." January 5th, the Wuhan Municipal Health Commission put out a statement with updated numbers of cases, but repeated preliminary investigations have shown no clear evidence of human-to-human transmission and no medical staff infections. January 6th, the CDC offered to send a team to China to assist with the investigation. The Chinese government declined, but a World Health Organization team that included 2 Americans would visit February the 16th. January 8th, Chinese medical authorities claim to have identified the virus. Those authorities claim, and the Western media continue to repeat, there is no evidence that the new virus is readily spread by humans, which would make it particularly dangerous, and it is not being tied to any deaths. January 10. The New York Times quotes the Wuhan City Health Commission's declaration that there is no evidence the virus can spread among humans. Chinese doctors continue to find transmission among family members, contradicting the official statements from the City Health Commission. January 11. The Wuhan City Health Commission issues an update declaring all 793 close contacts, including 419 medical staff, have undergone medical observation and no related cases have been found. No new cases have been detected since January 3rd, 2020. At present, no medical staff infections have been found and no clear evidence of human-to-human transmission has been found. They issue a question and A sheet later that day, re-emphasizing that most of the unexplained viral pneumonia cases in Wuhan this time have a history of exposure to the South China seafood market. No clear evidence of human-to-human transmission has been found. January 13. Authorities in Thailand detect the virus in a 61-year-old Chinese woman who was visiting from Wuhan, the first case outside of China. January 14. Wuhan City Health authorities release another statement declaring, among the close contacts, no related cases were found. Wuhan doctors have known this was false since early December. From the first victim and his wife, who did not visit the seafood market, the World Health Organization echoes China's assessment. Preliminary investigations conducted by the Chinese authorities have found no clear evidence of human-to-human transmission of the novel coronavirus identified in Wuhan, China. This is 5 or 6 weeks after the first evidence of human-to-human transmission in Wuhan. January 15. Japan reported its first case of coronavirus. Japan's health ministry said the patient had not visited any seafood markets in China, adding, it is possible that the patient had close contact with an unknown patient with lung inflammation while in China. As soon as Japan announces a possible human-to-human transmission, the story inside of China begins to change. January 18. Despite the fact that Wuhan doctors know the virus is contagious, city authorities allow 40,000 families to gather and share home-cooked food in a Lunar New Year banquet. January 21. The CDC announced the first U.S. case of the coronavirus in Washington, a resident who returned from China 6 days earlier. By this point, millions of people have left Wuhan, carrying the virus all around China and into other countries. At some point, it seems obvious that this becomes deliberate by the Chinese government in order to share the economic damage it was experiencing with the rest of the world. Then, this would fit perfectly with what Satan did to Adam and Eve. How so, you ask? Out of the 4 personalities in the Garden of Eden, only 2 of them, God and Satan, are conscious of good and evil. They are the only 2 who know what it means to eat the fruit or to not eat the fruit. Satan knows that Adam and Eve cannot judge good from evil, and knowing that they cannot even determine that God is good, because they do not have that knowledge yet. Satan uses their lack of consciousness against them, or said like Hosea, people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. China, as you can see, was conscious about COVID-19 and how contagious it was, and tried to keep the whole world in a lack of knowledge as long as they could. And because of that, we are all experiencing a lot of death, financial ruin, and also many of us are in a lack of knowledge about what to do and what the future will look like. The lack of knowledge is where we all go to get tested, and China failed. What about you? How are you doing in it? When you look around or watch the news, how do you see other people behaving in it? Do you think that they are passing the test by hoarding toilet paper and hand sanitizer? Job was in a lack of knowledge about the permission given to Satan by God to allow the killing of all his children, the taking away of his wealth and his health. How did he do in the lack of knowledge? After the crucifixion, Thomas had to see the piercings of Jesus to believe. He could not believe despite being in a lack of knowledge. Did he pass the test? I don't think so. God the Son became a human, disrobed of all his power, glory, and knowledge, entered the lack of knowledge where we are, even had to learn because of this, though being God. How did Jesus do in the lack of knowledge? COVID-19 is no different. It is here to test the hearts of us all. Did we pass? I have heard many people say that when they get to heaven, they are going to kick Adam in the rear end. Are you? I think Adam is going to kick you in the rear end. The Garden of Eden is such a primitive story that you have all grown beyond. A story not worth studying anymore, and yet you have overlooked these very facts. All our tests and trials are about it, standing or believing despite being in a lack of knowledge.